Hello, welcome to the conference today. I recognise lots of you here today, but can you hear me properly? Is it one of those? Yeah. I'll try my best. Wave at me if the sound's a bit in and out. I'm Kim Shuttler. I am the chair of the VCS Assembly, and my day job is I'm the chief executive of the Seller Trust from a local mental health charity. So I'm going to be emceeing today. I think if you're an MC, you're meant to be funny. Sorry, I'm not funny. And also, I've realised I might stack it on the stage because there's some really big holes that are perfect for my stilettos to stick in. So that might be funny. Anyway, it's really nice to see everybody. Oh, it's making a horrible noise. It's really strange, isn't it, being all in the same room again after all this time? And what an unbelievable couple of years it's been. But it feels a real privilege to get together. I don't think any of us come into this sector, or our partners who are here in the room as well, if you don't care about connection with people. So the opportunity to get with people again, I think, feels lovely. So today is about coming together and celebrating what we've been through. I think it's about reflecting. We're not through it yet, are we? We're in some really, really tough times, and I know that there's some people missing here today, and they're missing because they're still suffering from COVID, and there are people missing who will always be missing, and we've been through some very, very difficult times. But I feel really privileged to work in our district, and I know lots of you do as well, and I feel really privileged to have the opportunity to chair, whatever that means, the volunteering community sector. I cannot possibly represent you all. We've got 5,000 odd non-constituted organisations, over 900 constituted charities in our district. Amazing. I think that's something to be incredibly proud of. So thank you. I just wanted to take this moment to thank you for being part of that. And just a few of us here today, but so many people out there doing amazing work. So a little bit of housekeeping. We're not expecting any fire alarms today, I have been assured. There's absolutely shed loads of fire exits though. Everywhere we look, there's a fire exit, so I'm sure you'll be able to see one. We have teas and coffees at the back. I'll talk to you a bit about lunch later. I think we need to, be mindful of the fact that COVID hasn't left us. You'll notice that people are wearing masks. We really encourage that, especially while you're walking around the stalls, and just be a little bit mindful of gathering in big groups over lunchtime. So we'll stagger the lunch times, and just be kind, because different people will feel very different about coming here today and being in a confined space. So I think that's all the housekeeping for today. So I'm going to hand over to Muppet. Where is he? Ah, there he is. Who is going to do a warm-up icebreaker for us.
Good morning, everybody. How you all diddling? Happy New Year to you all, several times over. Right, I've been noticing that before we got started, you were all sat there having a right good old cow. So getting back to used to talking to one another instead of doing it by the internet and that. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Seeing people actually with legs rather than just sort of just out there. Anyway, what I wanted to do with this one, it's a little bit of a giggle, but please just indulge it. It's only going to take 10 minutes, and then we can get back to the serious stuff. And you lot at the top table have got to join in as well. Right, what I want to do is I'm going to set off a countdown clock in a few minutes, and while that clock's ticking down, I want you to take some time and have a think about a personal statement that you're happy to share with anybody and everybody. This personal statement is to sort of about a secret that you've got. It might be that during lockdown you've learned a secret skill, or you might be relative to a celebrity, or you might have something that your colleagues don't know about, but someone that you're happy to share with. And equally, then make one up, one that's a total fantasy. And then when the clock clock finishes, metaphorically grab somebody, don't literally grab somebody, and share it with them. And who knows, you might have been working with somebody for years and years and years and not realize they have this secret skill. Are we up for it? Go on, it's a giggle. Well, just to get it going, I'll share two statements with me. Statement number one is I once walked the Pennine Way in 2.5 weeks. Statement two, I once sang with a couple of members of the Irish band Clanad. One of them was true, one of them's false. So something like that. You don't have to be as fantastic or as boring as that. So anyway, what we're doing, set this countdown clock off and have a bit of thinking time. Right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. Share your bits and bobs. Come on. Right. There you go. That wasn't painful, was it? No. So, any secrets revealed? What about your best mates? All right, shut up now. I don't know. We've got a conference to run. Come on. Right, how was that then? That wasn't too bad. Yeah. Found some good secrets. Yeah. Anybody prepared to share it? You don't have to. Anybody volunteering or sharing? No. No. You want to get on with it, don't you? Well, just to let you know, my two statements. Although I walk all over the countryside, I've never actually walked the entirety of the Pennine Way. I've done it in lots of bits. But one night, in what was then my local pub, the Melbourne, the door opened and in came two members of Clanad. They'd been actually appearing down at St George's Hall, and they came in for a pint and joined in with us. We had a right good night. Right, back to the serious stuff. Thank you.
So, reflections on the past 18 months. I think we could spend a lot of time talking about this. So we're just going to pick out some highlights. And unfortunately, Ian McBeath couldn't be with us today. So he has recorded a short video for us. And I think it was really important in reflecting in the past 18 months that it was very much about reflecting on the way in which we worked in partnerships. So Ian's going to talk a little bit about that from the local authority perspective. But I think there's lots of people in this room who I think we could have invited also to talk about this. But we've asked Ian, so we're going to play a short video, and then Sue and I are going to add a bit from our perspective.
Hi everyone, my name's Ian McBeath and I'm Strategic Director for Health and Wellbeing. I work for Bradford Council and I'm delighted to have been asked to say a few words with Kim Shuttler at the start of your Bradford District Assembly Annual Conference. I'm sorry I can't be with you there today in person. As you listen, and all being well, I'll be presenting at a national adult social care conference in Bedfordshire. So my apologies, but I'm certainly with you there in spirit. Just to introduce myself properly for those I haven't met yet, I joined Bradford Council in August 2020. I applied for the job before the pandemic started, and so I've largely spent the year on Zoom in my back bedroom. My role at the council is to be responsible for adult social care in Bradford, but also, along with Kim, I'm also appointed to be a health and care system leader in our district. I do look forward to meeting as many people as possible over the coming year at this event and on visits. Now, I was asked to give some reflections of the last year and on the collaboration I've seen, and what a year. The first thing I must say is how impressed and grateful I've been to Bradford and District's third sector. You're a strong, capable and highly effective voluntary sector, and the people you're working alongside, if they were here today, they'd all be saying a huge thank you for your commitment during COVID-19. Over the last year, there have been hundreds of examples of where local groups, community organisations and informal arrangements emerged to support people. In the early days of the pandemic, they were helping people shielding or assisting their neighbours, providing food and supplies, walking pets, assisting people with more complex needs. You've raised the funds, supported with local public messages, knocked on doors, often not knowing what the risks were to your own health, and provided support to people who would have struggled otherwise. You'll no doubt receive thank yous and recognition throughout all of today for what you and your organisations have achieved since the start of the pandemic. And as one of the conference speakers, my thanks might be the first of many. But please do take a moment to think about what you and your teams have achieved. Thank you very much. Now, your colleagues in the public sector, including me, staff at the council, and our elected members and staff in our NHS organisations, recognise the huge contribution you make every day. You have a seat at the top table in our whole system discussions, and I hope you feel more and more that we're listening, changing, and investing more in the third sector as the years go by. I've no doubt you'll hold me accountable for this when you meet me at some point in the future. As custodians of over £1 billion of public money for health and care in Bradford and district, we're committed to shifting more of that money and work into local communities and to the third sector. We know you can be more flexible, local, use volunteers and fundraise to supplement the professional services you offer, and of course, you deliver. In some of our meetings, we use the jargon left shift or 1% shift to represent our intention to move more money and activities to the third sector. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but don't forget, 1% of £1 billion is £10 million. But it's still public money, so I do want to ensure that we communicate what we're trying to do as a health and care system and work with the sector on new solutions for our people. This coming year, I want to renew our compact between the voluntary and third sector and agree a commissioning strategy about how we'll shift that money and how we'll hold each other to account to get all of it to the communities and groups of people who need it the most. Something else to hold me to account for. But most of all, my reflection is we've got so much to build upon. Bradford has a high proportion of its population who volunteer and get involved in local projects. We know that being involved in these ways helps everyone's well-being, including the volunteers. So we've a great foundation to build upon, and I look forward to playing my small part in making that happen. I hope you all have a terrific conference today and take the time to reflect on your achievements and get involved in planning for the future. Thanks for listening.
I think that really is a great introduction to reflections for the past 18 months and very much reflective of the conversations that I've had with other system leaders. Some of them are talking here today, but I think it's really reflective of the fact that as a sector, we've very much been immersed in working in partnership, being part of the emergency operations right from the top and then through to the grassroots. And of course, the grassroots has been key to how we've responded. Oh, I've been told I have to put the mic on my chin. That's weird, isn't it? That might be better. Oh, no, it's not better. Anyway, Sue and I'm going to invite Sue up in a sec. Sue and I are going to talk a little bit about our reflections from some of the work that we've done together over the past 18 months. And I've got Simon who's going to click through. So are you all right to stick it up as a full presentation? I called this what were they up to in those meetings, because I know that that's lots of what people think. So I hear a lot. Who gets to sit on those top tables? What are they doing? How are they possibly representing us? And what are they up to? Is it no good? Is it doing stuff that's helping me on a day-to-day basis? And so that's why I've called it that, because I recognise that when some of us there's lots of us in this room sit in these various board meetings and committees and things like that, you're like, what are they doing? COVID was a really, really different type of meeting to the normal board meetings that I sit in, which are full of, reams and reams of papers and NHS acronyms that even after many, many hours of sitting in those meetings, I struggle to understand as well. I think when we first got called to be part of what they called the command structures. Now, in itself, that sounds really weird, doesn't it? Gold command. I remember when Kirsten, who sadly couldn't be here today, who's the chief executive of the council, said, well, we've got these gold command meetings. Essentially what that was in normal languages, it was bringing together the people who could make things happen in the district as quickly as possible in a real emergency, and thinking, what what can we possibly do together beyond our organisational boundaries to put everything aside for the people of the district? So we got the call saying, be part of that. And I think one of the things that I reflected on was, at the time, I didn't really twig that it was great that we were invited to be part of those conversations. But it was only when I talked to people in other areas of the country that I found that nobody else that I met had a goal command with a voluntary and community sector rep on the goal command. So they very much recognised that the voluntary and community sector were amazing and part of the ability to mobilise and support communities. But I think the thing that was special about us, and as a result of the work that people have done over the past few years, is that we were recognised as equal partners at the top table, and there to be part of decision making and mobilisation. And I think we were there to represent the sector, but mostly I think we were there to represent the people that we all serve, and everybody was there in that same capacity. I think one of the things that's hard to understand, and it was really hard to understand for me as well, and others, is when we got to those tables, I sort of expected to have some sort of seat, have ahead of the game, knowing what was going to happen, decision making that was coming from government. I sort of expected that as key leaders that we would be maybe briefed in advance. We weren't, just so you know. So it was so one of the things that I really reflected on was the way in which everybody put everything aside to be there for the people of Bradford. We put our organisational boundaries to one side, we put money to one side, and cut through the red tape. That's one of my favourite things. That's why I love working in the VCS, is that we get to not be caught up in red tape. I spent a lot of my career in the public sector, and I love that in our sector we can be really agile and flexible. But what I noticed in that period, and is something that I hope that we all keep hold of, was the ability to cut through the red tape and just make things happen and really, really drive through the innovation. So when we sit at those tables, I guess the conversations were really, really difficult. As you all know, we were all operating in a situation which was life and death, and we didn't really know what was happening or what was going to happen. So the kinds of things that we were working on together weren't things that we had ever had to think about before. It was about thinking about how do we get food to people. And I know that the VCS and communities themselves mobilised amazing feeding projects to help people. But actually, I remember ringing around the country, in the middle of the night, trying to find somebody who had baby food and nappies. It was those kinds of big scale district operations around how do we mobilise a big volunteer infrastructure? How do we get PPE? That one of the best projects, I think, was when we had volunteers, corporate organisations and VCS collecting PPE from schools and delivering them to the hospitals. We really rolled up our sleeves and did whatever it took. And I think that was the thing that will always stay with me. We did whatever it took. And I know that all of you in this room will have done that as well, because everybody just thought, we just need to do this. I think the thing that we learn is that we have a really, really strong, diverse, vibrant sector who is used to adversity. I don't think our sector is we're used to scrapping down the back of the sofa for 50p's, aren't we? And actually, we shouldn't have to do that. But we're very, very resilient. We're very, very resourceful. But that also poses a problem that sometimes people think that we just do things for free. And we have our volunteers and our organisations that float around in the ether and just look after themselves on thin air. So actually, quite often, I think the role of people like me, Sue, and others is to advocate on behalf of the power of our delivery. We're not always, because we're all so busy delivering frontline activity, we're not always good at articulating the value of what we do and how amazing it is and what it delivers for the district and our economy. So I guess that's our job, when we're sitting at those tables, is to shout about the amazingness, that's not a word, is it? But how fantastic all these organisations are. And I'm always blown away listening to, every time I hear a new example of things that are run on a shoestring, and think, wow, if only that was sustainably funded, or if only if that had a little bit more money, can you imagine what it could be delivering on a what scale? I think the other reflection was bringing together people who don't always come together. So I sit in a lot of meetings, but I tend to sit with health people because I work in mental health. And I sit with mental health people, I sit with health people, or maybe, if I'm lucky, some social care people as well. But actually, during COVID, there was a really, really good opportunity to bring together people who come from all different types of roles: schools, housing, police, fire. Actually, everybody had a way of coming together and mobilizing things much, much quicker. So actually, a real reflection is, how do we step outside those governance boxes, or the people that we usually meet, and see the power of what happens when we bring different people together from different walks of life, different parts of the district, different professions, and we all bring something really powerful to the table. As I talked about at the beginning, it's impossible for us. We're called reps. We're not reps. We're advocates. We're champions. We care about the sector. I care really passionately about the value of the local sector. I talk a lot nationally about the value of local, small but vital charities. That, I think, if there's one message, I think if anybody was cynical about the power of the VCS pre-COVID, I hope they see now that we could not have done it without us. And it was the small, local charities that people turn to, the people on their front door, the people who are always there for them, whatever happens. It doesn't matter whether they tick a box, whether they fit in a criteria or a pathway. Those are the people that people turn to. And I hope that that's something that we always hold on to and can build on in the future.
Everyone, for those of you who haven't met me before, I am Sue Neverson and I'm the Chief Exec of Community Action Bradford and District. And for those of you that have met me from this way up in a little box, this is what my legs look like. Okay, so Kim's been supposed to do this slide as well, but what I want to do is let you guys understand from those meetings that Kim had, what we then worked across sectors to deliver in partnership with the council, with the care trust and with the hospitals. So some of the stuff that Kim led on that she didn't talk about, we did a lot of comms work. There's a list here, so these will go up afterwards. I'm going to cut down the time because we're overrunning. But some of the important things in there, like Ren, where's Hummer? Hummer will talk to people that are interested in how she set up a helpline with 13 languages. Okay. We had a whole network of organisations like Sonia's at Hale and John's at the Bridge, doing local insight and intelligence and feeding that back into the CCG so we could form comms. So we did a lot of work around that. And if we go on to the next slide, please, Simon. What I want to talk about is, there's some more stuff. I didn't realise there was that slide. So next one, please. No, it's good. You can pick that one up at the end. So what I want to do is go through these examples. When COVID first, we went home on the 16th of March, 2020. The first thing we did was think about all of these people that were stepping forward to volunteer. So the council announced, come and volunteer for us on this phone number. And then we had to quickly catch 1,600 people and try and arrange them. So in partnership with the council and with Volunteering Bradford and Bradford Foundation Trust and a few others, we actually set up 5 hubs across the locality. And then voluntary sector organisations like the lovely Janet, wherever she is, redeployed herself into Bradford West Hub to do volunteer coordination. One of my staff, Jill, went into another. 1 in a Million took over Bradford South. Bradford Foundation Trust took over Bradford East. And it was a real partnership work to make sure we could support those volunteers. Soon after that, we had people stuck at home and couldn't pick up their prescriptions. There was a lot of red tape around this because obviously some prescriptions are controlled drugs. So we ended up working with the voluntary sector, West Yorkshire Pharmacy and the fire service. So the lovely staff at Equality Together became this place pharmacies could ring. They would send a fireman who would pick up meds, take it away. Got a little logo about Bradford Credit Union. Has that gone off? No, there we go. I've just not got it far up enough. One of the things the credit union did was... Can you still all hear me? Oh, that's all right. It's okay. It's at my end. Credit union realised really quickly in one of those meetings that Kim was talking about that we had people that had gone on furlough and all of a sudden they'd lost 20% of their wages. So overnight, the council threw 30 grand into a pot, and with the credit union and in communities, we designed some loans which were interest-free. So these guys could turn up, these families could come, they could have £500 apiece, no interest, and only pay back £400. Those loans went in 72 hours. So that piece of work ended up on Radio 4 Finance Programme. It ended up at the Local Government Association as a piece of really good practice. So Bradford leading the way on that. The money, most people have started paying that back, and that's now being recycled for the tenants of in communities to get some more support. Next slide, please. Okay, I've nearly finished. So I don't know how many of you saw the lovely Zara on the back of buses and on big billboards. But one of the things, again, very impactful was the Behind the Mask campaign, which was, again, the voluntary sector and the council. This was, like I say, district-wide. You drove into town, you saw these people. This is another thing that made national headlines. It ended up at the Cabinet Office as an example of good practice. And you might have heard about it seen it on the telly or heard about it on the radio. Come down to the little picture of needles. Who got their vaccination in January, February as a health and social care worker? Hands up. Perfect. Okay, so that was courtesy of our hospitals and our care trusts. They absolutely saw the voluntary sector as part of the health and social care workforce and decided that we should promote people and get them vaxxed first of all. So it also means now we're coming up to the third jab. It's not a booster, it's a third jab. Keep your eyes out for your email because you'll be invited in early again to get that done. No child. Oh, let's come to I'm going to go round in reverse clockwise thing. The booklet. So again, another piece of comms, but this booklet between the NHS, ourselves, Community Action and City of Bradford Council, 180,000 copies were hard printed for that. We dropped it off at mass vaccination centres and people picked it up. Did just before Christmas because we realised people might start to shut down a bit over Christmas and people would still need that support. How many did we start with, Emma? 80,000? Yeah, so they thought we'd have 80,000 copies. And we ended up with 180,000. So that, again, is really good. And then finally, the thing we've all done together, winter was a bit cold, wasn't it? It was colder than we were expecting. And again, people were still on furlough. We expected people to still be back at work. So Jenny Cryer in the council was like, we can't have any of that. So with Give Bradford and the voluntary sector and local businesses and the schools and Citizen Advice processing these grants, we set up a campaign and supported, I can't remember, about 18,000 children in the end, I think it was, close to 18,000 children. The parents basically got £80 a month for 3 months to pay the heating bills. But on top of that, we were really lucky, Farida, through business in the community, Tesco's delivered a load of clothes to go out through the schools. And I tell you, we couldn't even get them off the back of the lorry. The schools were there so quick. And it was really good. So it was, again, a massive all-round sector thing. I'm going to stop now and hand over to Kim. So, but the one thing is everybody that's touched by those projects or was involved with them should be extremely proud of themselves and remember that actually we can work in partnership.
I passed over to Sue too soon. Sorry, Sue. A quick one on supporting the sector. Is that working now? So people might have seen the survey that went out from Community Action about VCS resilience. It's really, really important for us to be able to capture what's going on for the sector, to understand what supports sustainability. Now, we sort of know that money supports sustainability, but it's more than that. It's stuff about workforce, it's stuff about our buildings. So busily in the background, we were looking at actually what are the things that we need to ask for help for, because of course all the public sector organisations have a really big infrastructure that we do not have. So a lot of the mobilisation was thinking about actually what can we negotiate for the sector to give, what kind of help do people need? And the things that happened in Bradford that haven't happened in other areas of the country were that there was an agreement at this big gold command. CCG and the local authority would upfront payments for their commissioned organisations for a full year and to help with cash flow. And then in the following year, then there was a process agreed with Ian, who sat over there, about how VCS organisations who were commissioned but were struggling still with cash flow could put in a case for additional support in terms of upfront payments and rolling over contracts. So very much we were being listened to and say, actually, our partners were saying, well, what can we do within our gift? We haven't got endless pots of money, but what is within our gift to support the resilience of the sector? We were also doing a lot of lobbying. People might know, this is very controversial, but the government didn't really care about our sector that much. There's not, put up your hand if you received some COVID money from direct from the government. Oh, Carlton. The Seller Trust did as well. So me and Carlton. Oh, and the team. So, but I guess what I would say there is 3 of your biggest organisations in Bradford received the money. Completely useless. actually, I would say. Not useless, we put it to good use, but actually we need the money to go to the frontline organisations. So lobbying the government, lobbying and influencing at a regional and national level to say, actually, it's all very well government saying, oh, we've put all this money to save the sector. If none of that's reaching the front line, then it's not helping our communities. And then lots of influence within programs that you might not be aware of, but there was a lot of work, for example, in the mental health program to look at how money was shifted into the sector, really creative use of the workforce. Because actually one of the biggest challenges for our statutory partners often is about workforce, actually having the people there. And we have these fantastic, skilled staff and volunteers in our organisations who are ready and willing to help and, again, put everything aside. So I'll just quickly go on to the last slide, which is about the learning. So I think the things that aren't great are, and then I'm sure that people are very conscious of this, speedy operations and decision making, life or death type decision making in emergency doesn't lend itself very well to consultation. I know there'll be lots of people who say, well, why wasn't I consulted about that decision? It wasn't possible. We had to, I guess what I have to say is you have to trust us that we do our very, very best for you and very, very best for the people that we serve. And that is difficult because we like to be a lot more consultative in how we work. It's impossible to represent the sector, but we champion it, we fight for it, and we fight really hard. And some of the colleagues in the corner from our statutory organisations will know that we bat really, really hard for the sector and the people we serve, and they get it, get it in the ear from us. We've shown great strength in working together, and that's not easy. Partnership working is never easy. It's painful most steps of the way, but it always leads to brilliant things, always. So, and I guess what I want to, because we haven't really got time and I've been waffling on far too much, is you'll have heard probably out and about, maybe, about Actors One. I think we've got amazing examples already across our sector and with other statutory organisations of us of acting as one. Basically, it's just about coming together and putting things aside and doing the right thing, putting the person at the centre, putting our communities at the centre, and pulling together to get the right, best outcomes. It's going to be a really, really tough few years, isn't it? We know that. It's going to be tough for our sector. It's going to be tough for the people we serve. We can only get through this as people, organisations and communities if we act as one and pull together. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to hand over now to the real superstars, and we're only able to cover 4 examples today. We could have had thousands of examples of the amazing grassroots organisations doing fantastic work, but we've got 4 brilliant examples. So first, I'm going to invite up Deb from Artworks Creative to talk about tools of creativity. Where have we got Deb? Oh, there she is. Welcome, Deb.
Are you sitting comfortably? I doubt that many of us are. We are all carrying sorrow and loss in the knowledge that it is not over. Not yet. Not yet. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I will begin my story, one of many you will hear today, and you all have your own to tell as well. My epic tale, told in 5 minutes, is about a bout of 7 rounds, 7 editions of bundles of creativity produced over 10 months in our Bradford, locked down and down. Bundles of creativity versus global pandemic and growing inequality. The odds will never be in our favour. This much we know. And yet, we have a go. Round 1, April 2020. Oh my goodness gracious me, projects ready for delivery. But how do we reach participants isolated and in digital poverty? The online party is exclusive. It doesn't reach where poor people live. What have we got in our cupboard to help them keep creating? It was a start. 3,000 creative play activity books distributed through food banks, healthy holiday clubs, support and self-help groups, anyone who could deliver to the doorstep during lockdown. It gave us time to, 1, persuade a funder to allow us to spend money intended for a refugee women's textile project with Bevan House on our June edition, planned to coincide with Refugee Week. 2, raise funds to include some materials to be creative with. 3, develop distribution networks, find volunteers to assemble bundles, think and plan what else they could deliver and contain. So thanks to Brelms and Bradford Council, CABAD, Stronger Families, the Anti-Poverty Events Group, Get Out More, In Churches, Feeding Bradford, and Stronger Communities, who were in on it from the start. Rounds 2 and 3, June and July 2020. Demand was increasing, so we upped our game. 5,000 copies, 8 pages, and information people needing. People not wanting just to be receiving passively, not wanting to be defined by need. Arup ran a children's art competition. Nazaret Raza designed cards of inspiration, including ways to get help in violent situations as home became more dangerous for women. Yet more. Get Out More got out more ideas for exploring. There was make your own masks and plenty of drawing. Our rubbish ideas were a regular feature as desperate parents strove to be teacher as well. We kept up our sparring as COVID spread and the gap kept widening and George Floyd was dead. Rounds 4, 5 and 6. Bundles of Creativity became Project 20136225 in August, thanks to the Coronavirus Community Support Fund. Applied in May, decision on August the 10th. Too late for summer holidays that were anything but. And here's a secret. We'd gone to print 4 days before. We couldn't wait. Hence, August edition was cheap as chips. Cost was funded from leftovers and goodwill, which is so often the way in our sector. What that little bit of funding security, and I am talking just over £9,000 here, meant was we produced 2 stonking editions at Halloween. Are you with me? And midwinter. And with that security and a bit more time between editions, we extended to 12 pages and 10,000 copies, extended our partnerships, welcoming Bradford Libraries and the Science and Media Museum, bringing new content, extended our distributors. For now, some primary schools were sending out bundles to every child. We developed coherent themes for each edition, weaving ideas throughout, conceiving centre page spreads craftily designed by Claudia Bowler, including more information in the bundles. All good. But December was bleak, and in the bleak midwinter, frosty winds were blowing. You could make a mask, you could wear a mask, but there was no masking. People's and young people's mental health was suffering. Here's some of the introduction to the midwinter edition. Winter is biting hard this year. Lockdown is increasing loneliness and isolation. Many of us are missing company and struggling with our mental health. We acknowledge this in our midwinter bundles of creativity and have included not only a lovely affirmation card, but a card and envelope for you to gift to someone else. Do you have a friend or relative who might be lonely? Think about your neighbours. Is there someone nearby who could do with a friendly card and message from you? Use your card in this bundle as an act of kindness that could be part of 10,000 people in Bradford feeling a little bit better. So, that's over 5 minutes. The battle is by no means done, but my speech is almost. almost. COVID has wrought havoc, deepening wounds and divisions locally, regionally, globally. Bundles landed a few good punches. By collaborating, connecting and working alongside municipal agencies, the member-led unincorporated, the anarchic, those motivated by faith or politics, and all sorts, because we are stronger together. By steadfastly believing in people's humanity, their dignity, and knowing art and creativity are fundamental, because denial of that diminishes us all. By looking honestly at what's occurring and seeing the digital divide opening up, adding to economic, food, fuel poverty, and all the rest. So hard copy was best, because people, communities, societies need art. Epilogue. We thought that was it, until Bradford for Everyone commissioned the numbers edition, our last huzzah, fittingly called Everyone Matters, Everyone Counts. Are we sitting comfortably? I hope not. There is much to be done. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, next up we've got Heather. Oh, here she is.
Morning, everybody. I don't think I'm quite that poetic. That was fantastic. But I'm really happy today to be here representing Better Start Bradford and to share with you our wonderful, developing the virtual antenatal project that we did during COVID, which was a really innovative collaboration in response to COVID-19. So I'm going to share that with you this morning. I think I may just look at the screen. I hope that's okay. Flipping bits of paper is always quite frustrating. Next slide, please. So at the beginning of 2020, Better Start Bradford, we were commissioning Baby Steps and Happy, an antenatal postnatal project, and we were giving direct support for the Welcome to the World antenatal project within the family hubs, which was fantastic. We continued to commission Baby Steps and Happy. The local maternity service delivered face-to-face antenatal education across the district, as you will all know. And due to COVID-19, all the antenatal classes across the district were suspended, which has a huge impact on those people who were expecting children, babies, within that period of time. So this really provided a new opportunity to test and learn, which is what Better Start is all about. I'm sure most of you will know that. So through developing a virtual antenatal offer that we could really offer to people across the whole district. Next slide, please. So our vision was to co-produce and deliver an accessible virtual antenatal education during the pandemic, which is quite a big deal, I think, but yeah, it was to provide this evidence-based information on pregnancy. Very important that it's evidence-based for birth and for infant-parent relationships in families within Bradford across the whole of the district. Next slide, please. So our collaboration was between quite a number of different organisations and people across the district. So we had our Better Start Bradford Child Health Lead. She was leading the whole of this innovative project. Our Better Start Bradford Specialist Midwife, Alison Brown, some of you will know Alison well, and our Early Years Welcome to the World practitioners, one of which is me. The parent education midwives from Bradford, the teaching hospitals, maternity service, and our admin and comms team, who really provided massive support that wasn't really available through the hospital at the time. So that was a really important part of the project for the people getting involved and for ourselves as deliverers. So, and we also had specialist support, which was fantastic. Some really wonderful specialists involved in various sessions So we had the specialist breastfeeding lead, the peer support breastfeeding service, the lead for SMABs, Early Years Alliance, and local health visitors. Next slide, please. So the session content, this is just a quick rundown of the 6 sessions that we had going on. It started at 4, but it evolved into 6. So we had happy, healthy pregnancy, so physical and mental health, baby brain development and bonding, preparing for birth, supporting choice and understanding your body, giving birth, one of the most important bits, but not to forget all that surrounds that. So the early labour, the comfort and pain relief, bonding, feeding, and the infant-parent relationship, which sometimes is overlooked a little bit, I think. Feeding and sleeping, breastfeeding, responsive formula feeding, so the infant feeding leads were really key to that. Safe sleep and normalising infant sleep patterns for people. After birth, so relationships after birth, introduction to the health visitor service, looking after mental health, really important. We know, we've just heard all about that. And supporting infant-parent relationship. And we also had a wonderful session from Alison on breathing and relaxation, as she's a hypnobirther. So that was absolutely wonderful. So this is just a little snapshot from our website. We set up a bespoke page on the website where people could look really easily at what was available and book themselves in really simply and easily. Next slide, please. So there were 14 courses, 12 afternoon and 2 evening sessions over 11 months, and we reached 348 individual women, 1,368 contacts from across the district, with 51% from the more deprived area of Bradford. We do have a lot more statistics and information around that, what you know, who we actually captured with these sessions. So if you do want to know more information, just let us know. Have a chat with me afterwards. We had the dedicated web page, and maternity services and Better Start Bradford's Facebook page and social media channels were really plugging it out there so everyone could really get hold of it and see what was there for them, what was on offer. We had the admin, like I said, to handle the bookings and the numbers and the Zoom support. Obviously, it was really important for people who could access the Zoom to be able to do it comfortably. And we were having continuous PDSA cycles to improve and adapt the sessions. So that was, so that we could just look at where we were in terms of what was working, what was not. We had some Survey Monkey stuff going on for people to fill in, which really quick, simple little surveys for people just to let us know what they felt about it and what we could improve as we were going along. Next slide, please. So developments and lessons learned, really. We're distributing relevant links during and after the sessions, which people found really helpful. So there were things going on in the chat. I'm sure all of you have used Zoom on numerous occasions with the chat feature. We also had links being sent out via email to all the people that participated by our wonderful admin team. We had evening and specialist classes, so for multiple births, for hypnobirthing and particular medical interventions by our specialist midwives. We had a mix of clinical and non-clinical staff, which was really appreciated by our participants and families. We had different perspectives there coming from the clinical side and the facilitator side, and the 2 admin staff as well. We had some real true collaboration, I would say, with this project because it was people were in such need of something during pregnancy. Everything was cancelled. It was a case of what can we access, where can we go for help, particularly the first-time parents. As those of you who are parents know, it's not an easy it's not an easy time, is it? And you really want information. You want to know what to do, how to do it, what kind of, all those questions you want answering, really. So we were connected to a local offer through the midwife and the health visitors. We really tried to make that connection for people so they could meet their local health visitor and the midwives and really get all the information they needed at the time. Next slide, please. So it had a real positive impact on mental health during the pandemic. We had some really positive feedback from people who really hadn't got any support, were not able to see their families, were not able to have that normal, if you like, contact with their parents, their, extended family. So with some fantastic feedback from it. We also set up WhatsApp groups. So I was involved in doing that after each block of 6 sessions. We set up a WhatsApp group for all the people that had joined in any of those sessions, so they could really get that peer support. But they could also ask questions because the midwife was in those groups, so they could really follow up anything that they'd got any worries about, any concerns, and they could be just messaging in and asking questions to each other or to the midwife or to us if we knew the answer. Also, we learned a lot. We collected quite a bit of data, really. So it was really looking at inclusion, being able to include as many people as we could in this from across the district, and to try and target some of the most needy families. Tricky to do, and tricky if people haven't got the technology. We're very aware of that. But there was a lot of learning. Like I say, if there's any more you want to know about that, please have a chat to me afterwards, and we can certainly send you some information on that. The SurveyMonkey feedback was via questionnaire, via email, and we had some great responses, some pointers for us to learn from, which was great, but also a lot of positive comments. Next slide, please. So the key survey theme was the culture of the sessions, and 100% would recommend to friends, which was fantastic. I think what this quote just says, I'll just read it here. Everyone has been exceptionally helpful. Their knowledge and expertise is beyond what I expected. No judgment, just open, honest advice that put me and my partner, first-time parents, at so much ease. Amazing delivery of session, and I cannot wait for the next. Everyone was so quick to respond to questions in the chat, and it was so interactive. One of the best Zoom sessions to date, which obviously made us feel really good, as you can imagine. But I think it was a real true collaboration between Better Start and all those different experts in the field and the midwifery. So a fantastic project that had a lot of really positive outcomes for people, and particularly in terms of that support during such a really difficult period of time when there was no one else really that they could turn to. So thank you very much for listening. And if you've any more questions on it or any more information you'd like in terms of Better Start Bradford, we've got a stall through in the other room, so I'll just plug that really quickly. And Sally and Zaffa are on there. So Sally is wearing a green t-shirt today. In fact, I think they both are. So go and have a chat with them. We've got lots going on, 20 projects. We've got an innovation fund, Parents in the Lead projects, lots of opportunities for families to get involved, to receive some funding and to do some really innovative projects. Thank you very much for listening.
We've got 2 more fantastic speakers. We have got Rebecca from the Hail Project next.
Yeah, I work at the Hail Project. You'll have heard of us, and at the beginning of the lockdown, we got funded through a young people social prescribing project. So we've done a lot of stuff for adults, and we really identified the needs. And we're really lucky that the CPG via the RIC programme were able to fund us. And then partway through the lockdown, we also developed a link with Affinity, who run a sort of group. Yes, this is our team. I just looked through. Someone said I should include that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, can we move on? Yeah. The Young People Social Prescribing Service was due to commence on the 1st of April 2020, and our aims were to increase and encourage young people's ability to make good choices, reduce loneliness and isolation, improve self-esteem, get them connected to their communities, and have a better understanding of their health and well-being. However, we all know that on the 23rd of March, Boris told everyone that you must stay at home. You mustn't make friends, and if your friends ask you to do social stuff, say no. And you shouldn't be meeting with anyone who doesn't live in your house. So we were like, what can we do? So we worked with as part of Hale, we work with Sue and I work with Jill at Cabad to support 284 volunteers across Shifley. And as part of that, we've provided a drop-off point for the people of the community to create face coverings, which we then distributed to the people in the community who needed them most. Our volunteers provided baking and entertainment at care homes. They did litter picking while on their daily walk, and they wrote letters to care home residents who were not getting visitors because obviously they weren't allowed. And 29 of our volunteers sewed scrubs, which were shared with the hospital in Bradford, but also some were then sent to Africa to support their healthcare workers. So I thought that was quite exciting. So as part of our youth work team, we were really lucky to adapt the service we were supposed to provide in order to do what we really needed to do. So we worked with Bevan Healthcare and delivered over 280 wellbeing and activity food packages to their families. We provided wellbeing calls for really vulnerable patients at quite a few GP practices. We established online groups and put together resource packs. Because like people were saying earlier, although people are at home and they might be willing to join in, if you don't have the resources, you feel even more isolated. So we made sure people had all the resources they needed to join in, and we offered support via the telephone, text, WhatsApp and video call, which were new to everyone, and technical issues did occur, but we just got on with it and did it. We had 77 group sessions, some were online, and then as soon as restrictions allowed us, we've started doing some face-to-face, but we know that people still want online support because they feel more comfortable that way. Some of the young people created lots of different stuff at home, and it gave them an opportunity to really think about themselves and where they wanted to be in the future. Our young people as well, we established WhatsApp groups, and that's actually really given them a chance to support each other without us being there. They're now like meeting up with each other, they're having a really good time. So yeah, it's worked really well. We did over 363 one-to-one sessions through all different methods, face-to-face, telephone, video chat and WhatsApp. Throughout working with people, I think someone mentioned earlier that people didn't have the access to technology, they didn't have courts, they didn't have any of the things they needed over this time. So we applied to the National Lottery and we received funding to provide a variety of different things. So we were able to provide the resource kits we needed and distribute them even further than we initially planned. We provided 10 young people with laptops and stuff so they could get involved in their education, but also join the online support groups. We also provided Biosam with some top-ups for mobiles so that the people they work with could keep in contact with others. We could provide bikes. We provided 52 winter coats to a lot of people who didn't have a coat, so now they do. The funding allowed us to pay for transport so young people could get to the groups that were running face-to-face but that weren't necessarily in their area. We created a community garden in BD3 and we've signed somebody up for Scouts. As soon as he can get there, he'll be going. This led on to us doing other stuff over the Easter, so we applied for Holiday Activity Fund and over 130 families got packs. We did some recipe challenge stuff and then we worked within churches to do a face-to-face cooking session. All our young people enjoyed the sessions a lot. 93% felt less isolated by the support they received and 66% felt more connected to other people. And yeah, some more feedback. People really enjoyed it. And one of the best feedback I've got that I didn't put on there were someone said, "Oh, you guys are professional friends, and I wish everybody could have a friend like you." And so that's one that really sticks with me.
And last but not least, Mike Biggins from Bradford District Senior Power. Where is he?
Well, good morning, and thank you to the CNet Secretariat for inviting me along this morning. I'm standing in for Kay Wright. I don't know if she's in the building yet, but if not, we are. I'm not too sure how many of you have heard of Bradford District Senior Power. Well, we call it BDSP because it's a bit of a mouthful. But in comparison with many of you, we're an extremely small charity. We work out of 2 locations, one in the city centre in John Street near the market, and the second at St Mary's Church Hall in Wibsey. Our primary focus is on well-being and befriending support, primarily to the adult age group, the vulnerable senior adults aged 60 and over, mainly living in South Bradford. By way of context, March 2020 presented a number of significant challenges to trustees. At that time, BDSP was faced with a triple challenge, a triple whammy. First, COVID forced a total suspension of our centre-based services overnight. Second, competition increased for an ever-decreasing pot of unrestricted cash grants to address the crisis facing a charity. A third, demand surged for a new kind of support service to address the plight of our service users. Those over 60, many have got physical health difficulties, sensory impairments, mobility difficulties. Many have got long-term mental health conditions. Many of them, like myself, are not familiar with keypads and screens. Faced with the restrictions imposed by lockdown, each of our vulnerable service users was forced into a long period of shielding, isolating them from their families, their friends, their carers, their neighbours, and the wider communities in which they lived. And the shielding process brought on additional pressures, contributing to a further deterioration in their mental health. Disturbed sleep, anxiety, insecurity, fear, confusion, detachment from those they love, loneliness, and general poor social functioning. And persistent negative news on TV and radio led to the doom scrolling, and this only aggravated the fields of depression, anxiety, and fear. In short, many adults had few people, if anyone, to turn to. Many thought they were at risk of being forgotten. Indeed, since Freedom Day, it's become clear just how many senior adults we've lost from our communities. In short, therefore, BDSP was facing a unique challenge. Work from its 2 centres, its activities designed to support vulnerable adults were suspended. And it was clear to us that hub-centric business models were no longer viable, at least for the foreseeable future. Trustees therefore had to design new ways of working to reach those who were dependent on our support. So we came up with a new platform, keeping our community connected, a platform which forms the basis for a number of well-being and economic support projects designed to engage and support our target group. So from this came our project Crafternoon Tea, a simple vehicle, afternoon tea parcels with games, therapeutic games to stretch manual dexterity of the adults, and emergency contact information sheets. And the objective was to maintain weekly contact with service users we'd identified as being in greatest need. Weekly doorstep calls gave volunteers the opportunity to carry out a brief assessment of adults' daily needs, to prompt them to keep moving, to carry out basic exercises in their homes, and not to let inertia take over their lives. And by creating a diversion and a break in the isolation, delivering a weekly afternoon tea package created an opportunity for volunteers to interact with the target group, to be aware of cold callers and possible coronavirus scammers, to share ideas on how to keep busy at home, to improve their coping capacity, and to maintain a normal routine as best as possible. and to encourage other community residents to volunteer and check in on their elderly neighbours. In summary, therefore, the project to reach out and connect with senior neighbours, and as self-isolation increased, we needed to find new ways to stay connected and to check on one another for adults' physical and mental well-being. So the project was designed to test the market, as BDSP had not actively been involved in outreach work beforehand. Trustees and volunteers had to completely overhaul their approach to giving support to some of society's most vulnerable residents. Thankfully, the CNet Wellbeing Programme provided pump prime funding. And as we move forward, this was renewed, and with amendments to reflect the changing COVID environment, we overcame barriers imposed by social distancing restrictions. Fortunately, we were also successful in securing match funding to carry out service user feedback and volunteer training. And latterly, we secured funding to continue the outreach support for a further 12 months. In terms of outcomes, what were we expecting? Clearly, with the COVID restrictions in place, we had to be realistic about what we could achieve. But the feedback we received from our customers was positive, improved coping mechanisms, development of an outreach capacity to develop new ways of working as befriending partners, increased numbers of vulnerable adults taking personal control of their own financial safety and their personal well-being, and vulnerable adults more confident to make positive decisions about their own health and well-being. Without CNet funding, trustees would not have survived in their current format. Without CNet funding, the plight of our senior adults may have been much more severe. And our thanks, therefore, to CNet for its support and to all our community partners who referred adults to us. We look forward to working closely with you over the next few years.
Thank you so much. Some amazing, powerful examples there, and I know that we've got so many more. I'm going to mess around a little bit with the programme because we're running a little bit behind, but also I get the sense that people are getting a bit parched. So let's have some tea and coffee.
Good morning. Is it? Hi, everybody. I hope you got the teas and the drinks. Thank you for. It's amazing to see real people, isn't it? Reflecting today. Thank you for Kim and Sue to take the first session. And for my presentation, I had Javed Khan with me. Unfortunately, he's had a bereavement, so my presentation is cut in half. And the brilliant presenters which were in front of me, they have decimated the rest of it. So I will just focus on the last two slides and tell you about where we are going. So you've heard about the work ASG and Assembly's been doing. You've heard from the VCS sector what they've been delivering, which is fantastic work, and that's just a small snapshot because there is a lot more behind that, and I'm sure it will come out eventually in due course. That does not look like my presentation. Anything like my presentation, so it's a good start. So yeah, I'm dying. Okay, my name is Naseem Qureshi. I'm CEO for Inspired Neighborhoods, and I'm also vice chair for the Assembly. Now, the some of us and ASG were looking ahead. So, as I said, you've seen what's been going on. We need to now start to look forward, and start to look forward with a hope that We will be coming out of the pandemic. We will be strong. We've learned a lot of lessons. And what would that look like? And obviously, for you to deliver on the new priorities, because the world has changed, hasn't it? We've got new ways of working. Our stuff is more flexible, and it's still not there. And the organizations are in different place. So, what would that look like? Is the question. And the other thing is what support mechanisms you guys need from the infrastructure to support you to deliver on the priorities. So it would have been easier to show you the priorities, but I will go through them. If you can remember them, there's only 6 of them, right? So if you see if you think about the presentation which happened before, one of the most important things is to develop our staff, our volunteers, to be able to deliver the work which is coming towards us. And it is about creating the environment within the organizations that they thrive in them, they stay with us, and they perform well. And obviously, because of the makeup of Bradford is changing, it's not going well. We need to be very inclusive, right? So it needs a diverse leadership. So that's one of the priorities. And these are all come. My eyesight, this is going to make it worse. Here you go, Kim. Thank you for trying. Okay. So that's one priority, is developing people. And the second priority, and they all came out from consultation well before the 18 months of pandemic and during the pandemic. The other important thing is to develop our voice. As a sector, our partners tell us there is too many people to talk to, too many voices. We need to have a very clear and coherent message from the sector. So everybody hears what we are all about, how we are delivering, where are we going, and the voice is strong. It has gone stronger during the pandemic, hasn't it? And the other thing we've learned is when we are working together in collaboration, in partnership, how strong we are, right? We have made so much change and the impact has been wonderful. So more of that we need to do. And we need to become sustainable, right? A lot of us are still grant dependent. And how do we change that? How do we become sustainable? How do we look at the new sectors, like a green economy, and how do we work in a miracle? Brilliant. Wrong slide, but the right presentation. Okay. So we need to be more resilient in that. So to deliver on those, we only picked 6. And that is the reason, because the resources are tight. Most of us who are working with this at ASG level are volunteers. Well, all of us are volunteering. So we do have our own full-time jobs, and we invest time in here to do this. So to support you to deliver in the sector's priorities, we have an infrastructure, which is the review you would have heard for the last well above 18 months going on, right? So what should that look like? Yeah. So, okay, so we need to continue to do the consultation, understand what would you want, what's the wants and the needs of the sector, and we need to see what it is in next 5 to 10 years. We can't work on what's 1 or 2 years, because that does not give us a long enough sustainable book. And it needs to be fit for purpose. So we are supporting you in what you need and focus the support, target it more, so the the smaller organizations and the medium size get more support. And we know that the larger organizations like mine, Tim's, and Trident and the others, we very rarely access support from infrastructure. We do, and we provide our resources to support the infrastructure at times, and we work in partnership. And also there is a clear message coming that we need to develop more leaders in the sector, more skills. And I do not mean CEOs only, I mean at every level. And you would have felt that pain, like myself personally in the organization, when something happens like pandemic, how quickly lines get decimated. And also, we need to keep the pace with the system change. So the health system is changing, and that is having knock-on effect with everything else. So how do we keep the pace? So infrastructure support needs to enable us to keep the pace. We've talked about the strong voice, and then the sector needs to the diversity of the city. Yeah, because the communities are changing. To serve those communities, we need to have diversity within ourselves. You are very patient. Amazing. So lastly, for the next step, we can't do it alone. In ASG, there is only few people. And the forums we have only few people. We need more people to help us to join us to do this. And if you go to CNet's website, it will tell you which forums there are and how you can join. I personally run the Community Economic Forum. We talked about the infrastructure, which is usually funded by tendering by the council, and there is some more money in it at the moment. So I just wanted to put that in perspective, that we are not resource. That's why we need to be smart about it. We need to be targeted about it. And as Kim alluded, we need to bring more investments to the city. In my presentation, I did put, there was a 4,000 organizations, a VCS organization. Kim just told us that it's 5,000 unregistered and 900 registered. So if you do your maths, for £750,000 of contract over 4,000 organizations, it's only 187 quid per organization, which is very difficult place to be. So we need to work together and collaborate on this one. Thank you for your patience.
So next up, we have a video presentation from Daryl. Daryl, you come up as well? Oh, it's not a video. So Daryl's next presentation is, is on diversity, inclusion and inequalities. We all know that our strength in this district comes from our diversity, but we also know that during COVID, that we were all in the same storm, but we were not in the same boat. And there are people and areas of our community that were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. There's been some amazing work done in the district by people in this room and beyond, but we know that there's an incredible amount of work still to go, and that health inequalities in our district are worse than ever and continue to widen. So I'm going to pass on to Daryl, who's going to talk on behalf of a number of different organisations.
Just so you know, I'm a very poor substitute for Mark Nicholson, who's buggered off on holiday. Yeah, so thank you, Mark. Right, okay. Are we up? Yeah. So my name is Daryl Smith, and I, among other things, I am working with Equality Together, leading on some training work around quality issues and hate crime and all of that sort of stuff. Okay. Just a qualifier before I start. This is a snapshot, and this is based upon information that, and thank you, people gave to me and the people in this room to give some of the indications of what's happening from the equalities perspective. So just to give a little bit of context, some of the hardest hit in terms of disabled people and older people, 6 out of the 10 deaths, as far as the COVID is concerned, have been disabled people. Okay. There's the long-term health conditions associated with that. There's cancelled treatments and the delays. There's the extant long-term inequalities that go on. There's, for example, the LEADER project, the adults with learning disabilities, and the annual health checks that were deemed necessary prior to COVID, but then didn't happen when COVID happened, and then the additional challenges that creates coming out of COVID for people who are already having poor life outcomes. So it's just bearing that in mind. The comorbidity issues associated with people who are disabled and older, and poverty, huge issues around poverty. Okay, in terms of BAME communities, higher death rates than white people. And these are some of the ONS statistics in terms of the first wave. Black African men 3.7 times more likely to succumb to COVID. Women 2.6 times. Bangladeshi men 3 times. Women 1.9. Black Caribbean 2.7. Women 1.8. Pakistani men 2.2. Women 2. In the second wave, it increased for Bangladeshi and Pakistani communities. I think for the Bangladeshi men, 5 times more likely. Okay, young people, issues around pay reductions, people being furloughed, no jobs, the disruptive education. Anybody got fed up with homeschooling? Yeah, homeschooling was a real challenge for many of us, and our young people suffered massively through the process, in spite of the efforts that everybody pulled together. So that disruptive education, does that results in higher risk of longer term health and employment prospects? So that's a challenge going forward for our young people. In terms of women, more likely to be carers, shouldering most of the responsibility of care work, more likely to be home educators, more likely to be in insecure jobs, less income. It's not everything, I understand that, I appreciate that. It's just some of the highlights, just so that this is some of the context that we're dealing with. Okay. Got a little audio. Now, Jamie, I wish Jamie was here, because Jamie would speak well, and Jamie is a peer support worker for Equalities Together. And this is just an extract from a longer conversation called Talk Together, which is one of the projects that Equalities Together run.
I'm Jamie Lowbridge, and hi. And the thing that I enjoyed about lockdown was getting to help and support a lot of people. The thing that I didn't like about lockdown was so many of the people that I was supporting, not just necessarily through Equality Together, there were people messaging me who'd known me for years, and so many thinking about suicide, so many, in very, very dire situations. That was not the best. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who've not had they've had a really tough time through
Yeah.
lockdown. Yeah. So when you're supporting people, just general friends as well as through peer support and through
friends, people that I'd known, from doing different events and being part of different groups over the previous sort of 7-8 years, really. I mean, the biggest one for me that was the hardest was mums with disabled children, or children with sort of additional, like, complex additional needs that involve behavioural things. I had mums as young as 7 telling me they really wanted to end it all because they literally they had no partners, the kids were not at school, social services had been no help, and they were just left 24/7 without a support system with these kids who require so much input. Normally, they've got, complex family systems that sort of have to step in and things, but there was none of that, So yeah, that was one of the saddest, when you've got a mum of a 7-year-old crying down the phone because, and she's talking to you about, wanting to end her life. That is one of the lowest moments.
Yeah.
And also meeting back up with people, because I'm really starting to enjoy getting out and about now. And my women's group that I run, they had a meeting last week, and there was a young girl who came up until March 2020, and she's 21. She had no sight, and she was really starting to get this confidence about her, this kind of sparkle about her. Oh, I want to teach Braille to children. I want to do this. And then seeing her in the park, and from the things she told me, she was clearly depressed and, really needed to reach out for someone to help, but didn't feel comfortable at this time. She was so anxious, she was rocking backwards and forwards, and she said, whenever I feel good, I just think the feeling's gonna go away soon. So seeing these people who are shadows of the former self when they come out of lockdown, seeing the impact that it's had on them has been very hard.
Okay. I use that extract because I think it covers a lot of issues, and I think we can relate to what Jamie's saying. The phrase that sticks in my mind is shadows of their former selves. And it's about trying to get that sparkle back for many of our people who we serve. Okay. Yeah, here's some of the quotes. The same old, same old. So today, as usual, I delayed getting up for as long as possible. Shadows of their former selves already mentioned. As I remember what has happened today, it dawned on me how similar this Wednesday has been from every other Wednesday. And we all can relate to that. But for many of our people in this district and everywhere else, of course, it has a massive effect upon people's mental health. I didn't leave the house. Well, yeah, many people didn't leave the house and weren't allowed to leave the house, or were advised not to leave the house, and it was really hard not seeing people as a consequence of that. That said, for some, a quieter time for some was welcome. It helped. It did help some people's mental health. So it's not all bad in that sort of situation. So, for example, the quote here. It's helped my mental health. It gave me time to reflect and deal with some issues. That comes from a member of the LGBT community, an older member of the LGBT community, and people going out for walks and actually making healthy lifestyle choices is something that we were all encouraged to do. Confusion. All of the visual noise that was going on in terms of the messages that were coming out from government, that created a lot of anxiety and angst in many individuals. This is a quote from one particular person. Messages were really confusing. It really freaked me out. The signs everywhere, it felt that they were more of a trigger. This was a person on the autism spectrum, and how all of this actually triggered a potential behaviour. Positive experiences. Online, I've managed to stay in touch because of my tech knowledge and equipment. In the 90s, it would have been very difficult. Zoom has been a godsend for many people. And the quote there about the tablet project. Are people familiar with the tablet project? Okay. The tablet project gave us access to the outside world. So experiences of lockdown, some of the key issues, technology, anxiety, You know, technology. If you were technological savvy, then you were then you know, the Zoom and being able to do that communication and the tablet project was great. But the technology relied upon you being able to use the equipment, have access to the equipment, have good Wi-Fi, all of those sorts of things. That was one of the key challenges, which is why the tablet project was really important for many people. Confusion, communication issues, lack of access to health and social care, trust issues, the false narratives that there was a lot of energy gone into addressing those issues around food, furlough, education, job, income. Not a challenge at all, really, is it? When you think of it from that point of view. This is Bradford East African community survey, and they did a survey of their members, and this is an extract from that survey, and by 47%, the key issue was money. Yeah, no surprise, but it's definitely something that we need to be mindful of. This is one of the happy recipients of the tablet project. Okay, I need to wind it up. Yeah. There we go. You guys raised £49,000 to research this program and distribute 1,300 tablets. Massive effect upon the community. Went to care homes, asylum seekers, people with learning disabilities, people in recovery, mental health service users. REN, 26 grassroots organisations supported nearly 26,000 people, recruited 153 volunteers, 13 languages, you know, fantastic. 11 helplines, brilliant. Taking the messages to the communities about exploiting those myths, doorstepping people. There was a lot of that went on and was needed. So it's about delivering the right message, the hot meals, the hygiene packs, the befriending services, animated videos that were going to make sure recognizing that people needed information in different ways, online worship, keeping people active. There's a lot left. There's a big list there, and I'm conscious of time. Sorry, Kim. Okay, that's the challenge. Okay, building back better. What is it that we all need to do to address that challenge? You know, how are we going to deal with the issue now that the reduction in universal credit is on the horizon? Okay, how is that going to have an effect on this district? Hospital and GP waiting lists. You know, we know all of this stuff. We know it's a massive issue. Social care waiting lists, the issue of housing and homeless. So the ban on the evictions is lifted. That's going to have an effect upon some of our most vulnerable in our district. All of the anxiety and the disruption, the wider determinants. That's the key issue. How we join all of this together, work in partnership. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Hello, everybody. I'm Humma Nizami. I'm the project manager at Race Equality Network. Didn't have time to prepare a presentation as such, but I just wanted to highlight the work that Race Equality Network have done with the BAME communities and Central Eastern European communities for both our projects. So in August 2020, we were commissioned by Bradford Council's Public Health Department to run a COVID prevention project to engage with BAME and Central Eastern community around COVID prevention, infection control, test and trace, and outbreak management. And it was really important that we worked with our communities who were the most disproportionately impacted by COVID. So from the funding that we received, we commissioned 26 grassroots organisations, and some of our partners are here today. So I can see Sharat from Mary Magdalene CIC, I can see Daniel from Connecting Roma, I can see Naz Kazmi from Kawak. So the work that they did was around comms with the communities to highlight the key messages in different languages. So as Daryl said, we launched a COVID-19 helpline in 13 different languages, including Sylheti, Slovak, Punjabi, Urdu, and Czech, to make sure, and Arabic actually, to make sure that these communities have the up-to-date information, advice on the government guidance, such as self-isolation, where they can get tests from. And then in addition to that, we received some further funding and were the lead organisations to lead on the COVID Champions project with BAME communities. So in partnership with Equality Together, Bradford Council, we funded 38 grassroots organisations. So Race Equality Network funded 31 organisations and Equality Together funded 11. And that was to basically recruit community champions who had the most trusting relationships with their communities to make sure that they had the advice around the vaccinations and eliminate any misinformation and hesitancy around the vaccinations. So successfully, we recruited 260 champions from across the district. And again, from that project funding, we recommissioned 31 organisations to deliver that message and increase the vaccinations across the district. So it was really important because we know that COVID has impacted all communities. I mean, through the funding that we received, we haven't even touched on the mental health impact on these communities. And we were really fortunate that we worked with organisations such as the SSN and MAPA to talk about vaccinations to 12 to 16-year-olds. We are working with clinicians from the NHS to deliver Q&A sessions to communities directly to address and understand their needs and address their issues really about why they're not taking the vaccinations. We're working with PCN 4, 5 and 6 across the district to increase vaccinations to those people from BAME communities who have refused the vaccination. And we wanted to understand that, why are they not taking the vaccination? So our helpline partners have trained their staff through the GP practices to take them calls and increase and have them really key conversations. Some people have got issues around fertility, hesitancy around that, around the accessibility, around the impact that the vaccination is going to have on their overall health. So it was really important that we did this work to really support the BAME and Central Eastern European communities. And I was just talking to Daniel just now, and it really hits it. It brought it back to the reality of how hard the impact of COVID has had on all communities. Daniel just said to me that, for the first time, the Central Eastern European community have fed back to him that they're actually being heard, that they're getting key messages in their language, which is really important. I mean, for an example, Daniel did a session on Facebook Live last year, and he connected to 17,000 people from not just in Bradford, but in Europe as well, around the importance of having the testing, of self-isolation. So these are key examples on how we can connect to BAME communities and Central Eastern European communities who are not really heard. And one of the biggest highlights for our project is being recognised in the government's vaccination plan. And we were used as a case study, the example that, the work that Ren has done, working with the grassroots organisations to increase vaccine hesitancy. So there's a lot of work still to be done, but we're getting there, and we're working with our partners. We're working with Bradford Council, we're working with the NHS, we're working with the CCG to highlight, the needs of the BAME community and how we can work collaboratively together to address the needs and make sure that the health inequalities are reduced at all levels. And Race Equality is an organisation where race equality is at the forefront of service delivery in terms of health, education, employment. So please do come and talk to us. We have got a stand. You can come and talk to our staff. Adiba is the coordinator for the Champions Project, and Hattie is the capacity builder. So it was just really, I just wanted to share the tremendous work that our grassroots organisations from the BAME and Central Eastern European community have done to really address the needs of the communities that have been impacted disproportionately around COVID. So thank you.
Thank you, Hummer. I'm sure everybody will agree. Amazing, amazing work, and just the way in which it was mobilised so quickly, like everybody else. I just think it's just outstanding, and I don't think we always recognise how innovative and fantastic our work is, and how much that's being picked up nationally. Actually, we're not very good at shouting out about our achievements, but actually this is really, really fantastic stuff that other areas of the country are learning from. So well done, everybody. Really, really amazing work. The next the next presentation, I'm actually is not Helen Hurst. It's James Drury. So Helen has sent her apologies because she's having to isolate, but she's very much here in spirit with us. And James has very, very kindly agreed to step in, but I can't see him. Where is he? Oh, he's there. Hi, James. Welcome, James.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, everybody, for inviting me to come and join you this morning. It's tremendous. So, yes. What's changing? Why is it changing? What does it mean? Okay. Right. What's changing? Why is it changing? What does it mean to us? Some of the things that follow here might sound a little bit technical. They might sound a little bit things that we're not always that concerned about. And hearing what's gone before around the voluntary and community sector and how much of an impact it's always had on the health and well-being of people here and in other parts of the country. It's critical that we don't forget this is a people business, isn't it? This is about our place, our people. And all these partnership arrangements that I might mention in a moment are really just there to make sure that it's as easy as it can be for us to do good work together. But here goes with some of the technical things. So there's a health and care bill going through Parliament at the moment. And one of the major elements of that is about providing a legal framework for partnership working. It, in effect, puts the health policy in the context of collaboration as the driver of improvement rather than competition as the driver of improvement. And you might go, well, that's not very new. And you're right, it's not. It's what we've been doing for many years. So the legal framework is catching up with the way that we've tried to behave and will continue to try to behave. But by getting the legal rules lined up behind us, it'll help us to improve health outcomes for everybody. It'll help us to join things up better for those people who need help from more than one part of our system. And it'll make sure that we make the best use of all of our resources collectively rather than duplicating things or leaving gaps. And you might also have heard about Act as One. So Act as One is the way that we work together here in Bradford District and Craven. It's how we improve outcomes, it's how we tackle inequalities, and it's how that we increasingly shift our focus away from just treating the consequences of things to getting up front and dealing with prevention and early help. So this health and care bill gives us the chance to keep building our Act as One approach. It's an acceleration, really, of what we've been trying to do. But that acceleration comes with a number of things we must do and people expecting things of us. So we'll tackle some of those in a sec. So we're going to build on what we've got here. This doesn't require us to rip it all up and start again. And that should be a sense of reassuring message for us all. So this is what some of that stuff requires. Across West Yorkshire and across 42 other parts of England, there will be an integrated care system defined in law. We already have an ICS. It does really well. We're part of it. Everybody else who works in health and care across our part of the world. And much of what's found its way into the guidance and the legislation is based on the experiences of places like us. So we've led the way on some of this. One of the key things that you should note here is that every one of these ICSs will have a thing called an ICB, an Integrated Care Board. And that will be the way that the money flows. So nationally from NHS England to these 42 ICBs, that's NHS money flowing there. And what our job is now is to make sure that we use that in the most effective way and we bring as much of that is already decided upon in Bradford District and Craven back here so it continues to be so. That comes with a consequence though. So at the moment we have a clinical commissioning group for Bradford District and Craven and that won't exist. The people will still be there. The requirements, the work will still be there and we'll continue to do it in partnership with the whole of the health and care system as we've done in recent years. But technically, that will be this ICB that will hold that responsibility. The other bit is what they call an integrated care partnership across our whole West Yorkshire and Harrogate area. and that's jointly pulled together by local authorities and the ICB, the NHS. And its job is to make sure there's a coherent strategy that addresses all of those wider factors that influence our health and well-being, and to make sure that it listens carefully to each of the health and well-being boards and their assessment of people's needs in their areas. And as it says there, this is about delegating significantly to the place partnerships, and that's a lot of the stuff that Kim referred to before about some of those meetings that she's been in. We need to make sure then that they are robust enough for people to trust us to spend, more than £1 billion of money. Public money needs to be spent right. We want to spend it here. We want to make sure we do that through our partnerships. So we know that we're building on some strong foundations. We're going to carry on doing that in the same way. We needed to set out in order to gain this authority how we will be led. And the key bit about how we want to be led is it's about leadership from every seat. It's about all of us taking on those leadership responsibilities beyond our organisational or our job description and leading for the place. And that goes for each of the people who sit on the sort of exec board, like Kim, like the chief executives of our hospital trusts, for example. And within that, we needed somebody to be our convener of that group and to be the nominated place lead. So we've asked Mel Pickup, who is the chief executive of Bradford Teaching Hospitals Foundation Trust, to do that. The critical thing here is this is asking Mel to do that as one of the equals in that room. This is not saying Bradford Teaching Hospitals as an organisation is leading this. This is about Mel convening a group of leaders who will do this together. And in the background, we've clarified how our partnership governance will work and how this will relate to the ICB. So I can demonstrate to people where they want to say, how does the money flow then to place? What will the arrangements be? Those things I can put a tick in the box. There's some things we still need to work on, and they're really important. The first one is people's voice needs to be part of this. People need to be heard. The distributed leadership thing needs to not just rest with a small group of people, but we need to make sure this gets to our neighbourhoods and that we take decisions at a local level, and it involves people, representatives, Health Watch, etc., etc. And we're going to need in the next few months some help to get that right. So that's coming up. The second one is an operating model. So those folks that I said that work for the CCG and already work in the heart of the partnership and will still be here doing that, we need to understand what the operating model looks like. How do they do their jobs? Where do they look for their guidance, their leadership, their management? How do they connect into the other organisations in the place? So that's what's coming up and we need to work on. But as I said, I'm pressing the wrong button here. I'm trying to make sure I can see it in front of me. You can change all the rules, all the governance that you want. But this is about people. This is about our place. This is about doing what we've always done, and partnership is really about that. So one of the things that I really want to ask you guys as coming away from this is, as we make these changes, it's fully our intention to make sure that we continue to involve people, work with people as true partners. Hold us to account for that. Make sure we don't forget this is what it's about. The things you heard this morning is what it's about. Those governance changes, that's just to enable that to happen. So there's a timeline to get this stuff in place for April. Don't worry about it. It's happening. It's coming along. It's ticking along. The important bit is where we get to by April won't be the end. That's us getting shipshape, ready to start working in this way. We're going to evolve it over time. We won't get everything right, so we're going to have to keep learning and improving as we go. And we really need everyone's input in order to get that right over time. So to wrap up then, what does it mean for VCSE organisations? Well, the first thing that I hope we've been clear about is you're the heart of the partnership, always have been, and they're critical to achieving those goals. So that what the partnership's for is what you're about as well. And there's a continued commitment from the local health and care system to that collective decision making, inclusive of voluntary community, social enterprise sector partners. We've been doing that for some time. The CCG worked through a thing that we call the strategic partnering agreement to form decisions collectively in a shared space. We're going to keep building on that and doing that work. In order to make that happen, though, it's really important, and this reference is really what Nassim said earlier, critical. There's a strong and coherent voice for the sector in order to maximise that influence, to help shape the strategy, keep it in the right space, to hold others to account, and to get things done. You know, if there's no else that I've learned this morning, is just the ingenuity of people to get things done when the chips are down is immense, and it's really required. And then, as we work as a partnership, some of this will be boards, committees, etc. But most of it isn't. Most of it is people doing what they do on a day-to-day basis, and your active participation in those partnerships is essential. You can do things that other organisations can't. Listening to Hummer about all of that stuff that Ren's been able to do, working through organisations, connecting to communities in a way that some of those bigger statutory bodies just won't. It's not that they don't want to, it's just that they're not built for that. They don't have the connectivity. We must make sure voluntary community sector organisations are involved in the delivery, bringing the insight and knowledge of what people want, need, how, and helping to connect those communities so they themselves can also play a part in driving this partnership forward. So, no, that was technical in parts, but hopefully brought it back to what this is actually about.
Good afternoon, I think, everybody. Procurement, normally the time when people want a comfort break. So I'll try and keep it fairly snappy. I'm Ian Westlake, I'm the head of procurement at Bradford Council. And I come to talk to you today about the procurement strategy. And it's a slightly different from what we've heard this morning. It's a bit more of a forward thinking look. It's been great to hear of all the fantastic work that's been doing, and hopefully what I'll talk about will show how we can build on that, and we can recover from COVID and using procurement go forward and really benefit the district. As you'll see, the strap line for the procurement strategy is buy for Bradford, and it is all about using the money that the council spends, the system spends, really for the benefit of the people in the district. Just in terms of a bit of context, it sits underneath the council plan. It's the co-term. From now until 2025, we're playing a very sort of long-term game with this. It was approved last year by CMP, by the full council, and it's really a key enabling document. It's not, I would say it's quite unusual from a strategy document. It's more like a vision. I kind of jest that it's a little bit like my manifesto. It's about what I want procurement to be. And I think going forward, trying to change the culture will take a lot of time about how the council procures. So what is the vision? I want to just spend a little bit of time on this slide because it's not necessarily all about people, about process and about governance. It's actually about the bit that's bold at the top there. It's about a function that is respected and trusted, that actually you can trust in the process and we can trust in you to deliver. And that works internally in the relationship between people that do the procurement and commissioners and contract managers, and externally as well as you as lots of separate organisations and also as a collective. Specifically, what I want to talk about is that the strategy wants to support the local businesses and enable the sector to feel like it wants to work with the council, and the council wants to work with us, and it's really the onus is on me and my service to make sure that accessibility is a key thing. We want it to deliver tangible social value and inclusive growth. We want everything that we want to do for the place. Everything needs to be in that context. Similar to what James was just saying, it's about how we're an influencer within the place, within public sector organisations. So it's not just about Bradford Council procurement standing alone. It's about how we work together with, public sector anchors, community anchors, and how we make sure that we're very simply very organised and it's forward planning. It sounds really simple when you talk about procurement, but actually being organised and sharing information and collaboration is really key to a good procurement strategy. And then obviously value for money is really important, and that goes without saying in a procurement context. So when you talk about deliverables, so how I want the strategy and how I want the council to procure kind of breaks down onto two levels. So you've got all the operational strategic stuff that the council will be doing, but then you've got every little piece of operational delivery, every service that's commissioned, every good that's bought. And actually, kind of, there's 5 deliverables around what we want procurement to look like, and we want every piece of procurement, whether strategic or operational, to kind of deliver the enhanced social value and embedded social value and actually real social value, because it's really easy to fall into social value being a tick box type thing where organizations promise this, but actually it's not delivered. And I think what we've heard this morning is that the real social value that your organizations deliver. It's about good governance, but not bureaucratic governance. It's got to be suitable. We're spending public money, but actually it's got to be relevant and appropriate for the decisions that we make. We've got to behave in a commercial manner. It's all about developing the procurement community as well. So actually, that's not just people within the council or people within my service. It's about making sure that you guys, as essentially suppliers, as bidders, are developed, and actually we can help you to get tender ready. It's not necessarily, in terms of one of the deliverables, being about having an adversarial relationship where we're the buyer, you're the supplier. It's about making sure that we are helping you in the best way possible to be the best that you can be. And then the final deliverable is all about digital transformation, and making sure that we're as efficient as possible. I think what we've found and what we've heard in various situations this morning is that digitalizing everything has made things much more efficiently where they can be accessed. And I think that's really important going forward with the kind of the procurement process. So one of the key measurables of what we're trying to do with the strategy is around spending more local. And I often describe the council spend, which is, in total across everything about £475 million a year. It's like trying to turn an Arctic truck around, because there's so many small parts of it and so many individuals that make decisions from a commissioning basis. And what you'll see there is actually that so the green line is the spend within the district, suppliers based within the district, and the orange line is within the Leeds City region. So actually the Leeds City region figure of 60% of our spend roughly is actually really good. Bradford district spend is, as you would expect, a little bit less. But what we found in the pandemic and in COVID was that you heard a lot of stories, and I was expecting that once we came out of a particular quarter, that local spend would have increased massively. But when you looked at the hardcore facts, it didn't. And there's a number of reasons for that. It's more to do with what we had to buy in extra, such as PPE, and the millions of pounds that we ended up spending on PPE from somewhere out of the district, and what we didn't buy. So actually, coming back to it, what you can see as you broke down the quarter there, that we kind of got back to a normality as the last financial year went on. And I think now's the real opportunity time to kind of reset where we are as an organisation, what we think about local spend, what's our appetite to risk in terms of local spend. And I think there's some big decisions coming up. Procurement, similarly to the health sector, is going to go through a lot of regulatory reforms over the next 18 months. And what that'll do is that will mean that we can reset how we approach things. We can reset how we tender for stuff, how we engage. And that's going to be really important going forward to essentially bump that green line up towards 60%, which is one of the measurables in the strategy. Similarly, with our spend with organisations, local VCSE organisations, what we've actually seen in throughout the COVID, so this is the difference between 2 financial years, is that the totality of that has fallen. It's percentage-wise, it's fallen again, but by not as much. And that is a specific measurable and a commitment from the council in terms of its commissioning and its procurement decisions, that we want to see that year-on-year increase every year now. And that's a commitment over the next sort of 5 years as part of the procurement strategy. I think in terms of why it fell, it was just that it was the number of different vendors that didn't get money last year. I think in terms of organisations that received money, it went down. And like I said, there are a multitude of very, very small pieces that make up the council's third-party spend. And I'll be perfectly honest, that surprised me when you hear the narrative and everything that and every story that you've heard this morning about the funding and the great work that's done, when you look at the overall, it did fall. And I think that's something that we need to take away and really understand that. And actually that should factor into our commissioning decisions. And something that Ian McBeath mentioned right at the beginning of this morning, he talked about a new commissioning strategy, a new compact, and I think that's going to be one of the key measurables in terms of that. And I think this is key to changing that kind of thing. So what does good look like in terms of commissioning, procurement, contract management? So in a kind of normal, if you want, traditional type relationship, the commissioning goes first, then the procurement comes along, runs a competition, then the contract manager manages the contract. What we need to do is start to blur those boundaries. So procurers, people like myself, need to get involved in the commissioning decisions to really sort of drive through the local spend. How are you spending this? What are you doing? Social value type things. And it becomes a blurring of the lines. And that, again, will be part of the commissioning strategy going forward. So kind of where we are with it, it's laying the foundations. And I'm just going to really whiz through some kind of the operational stuff that we're doing. The slides, Kim's telling me to hurry up. So really, really quickly. So the slides will get sent out, so you'll get all the links. So opportunities, we really understand what our opportunities are now. So actually moving forward, it's about forward planning, making sure that we're publishing what opportunities are coming out early. They don't just drop on you at a minute's notice. Market engagement, I think it's developed over last 2 years. I think we are still maturing as an organisation, but we need to get better at that. We need to be better at engaging and listening before we go out to market, before we offer opportunities. Supportive measures, we've mentioned already. The sustainability support process is still there. It's still there for you to access. Keep it local network. Actually, we need to reinvigorate that. I think it's good to have a conversation with the sector on procurement. Your tender's been switched off. There's probably a big yay about that, but we're replacing it with a new system. There's a link there. Once they get sent out, please register yourselves on there for opportunities. It sounds horribly operational and horribly boring, but it is incredibly important that you are registered on that system. We're looking at the way we pay, some new system so that actually we can pay faster and we can pay VCSE organisations much quicker because it's more streamlined. It's not waiting on people in the back office to process an invoice. Payment is incredibly important to you guys. We get that. And we're developing a program for small organisations and VCSE organisations about becoming tender ready and actually using a third party that works with the FSB. And that's something that will kind of intertwine with everybody to provide. It's free. To provide support so that actually we can help you with your procurement and your bid writing and things like that. And there's lots of training on there as well. So very, very quickly, what does the future look like? And I hope after 5 years, we'll be better at planning our activity. We'll have more proactive engagement. There'll be more opportunities, more accessible processes, better equipped local market, and then fundamentally local spend will increase. And that's really what we all want. And hopefully by doing all that, we'll get there and we'll get that figure up as high as possible. Thank you.
Welcome, Carlton, to talk about such an important topic. So please bear with us. Lunch is very soon.
So last leg, you'll be glad to hear. We've heard of all the amazing, fantastic work everyone's doing, and I appreciate everyone's really busy. But there's a new crisis on the horizon. Well, not so new, but a crisis on the horizon, and you all need to think about it. So I'm Carlton Smith. I'm the Chief Executive for Bradford Trident. I'm also a Director of Bradford Community Energy and the Chair of Bradford Environment Forum. So human activity is currently releasing greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. And greenhouse gases are warming the planet, causing climate chaos. Climate chaos is already harming societies and the poorest and least resilient to these changes. More people are suffering from climate chaos effects, and every day we continue to emit more greenhouse gases and making it worse. It doesn't have to be this way. It isn't too late, it isn't too difficult, and it isn't too expensive. We have the knowledge, technology, and ability. We just need the will. We can and must stop the increase in climate temperature by stopping our emissions of greenhouse gases, and the VCS has an important role across Bradford District to achieve this. There's a global movement towards zero carbon, and Bradford, along with the UK, is part of that solution. Evidence shows that humanity is taking great risks with the stability of the Earth's life support systems. If global average surface temperatures continue to rise, reducing this risk means working together to stabilize temperatures and to reach a maximum or keep below a maximum temperature of 1.5 degrees centigrade by pre-industrial temperatures. To achieve the 1.5 ambition, global greenhouse gas emissions should peak by last year and then be halved every decade through to 2050. Any delay will increase the risk of dangerous climate change and require even more dramatic reductions in the future. This change in greenhouse gas emissions will require the fastest economic and social transition in history. We need your help. But it's one which is both necessary and achievable, and will bring significant benefits by slowing biodiversity loss and hopefully reversing it, cutting pollution, and so improving the health and economic development of the communities we serve. It is critical to mobilise the entire business sector, including the civil society, for the 1.5 degree ambition to be realised and to halve emissions before 2030. You can contribute to this in several ways. You can work as a sector and with citizens to progress a whole system action, creating a near zero resilient district. You can work with the Wellbeing Board and strategic partners and key partners to implement the district's plan that has sustainable development and sustainable development goals at its heart. You can work with the council and the CCG or ICB, other funders and other stakeholders to make Bradford District a leading clean growth city. We've done it before with our COVID response. We need to do it again. And you can lead by example and contribute to the transition. Let's do practical, measurable things together. Reducing your organisation's emissions saves you money and improves the health and well-being of the communities you serve. Ask your suppliers to also look to reduce their emissions. And tell your community about what you're doing and your success stories. Become a climate leader and influence the wider society to join this mission. The process, which is compatible with science-based targets and initiatives, is to establish a clear climate strategy, define your targets, set requirements for your suppliers, and align existing and new projects with a 1.5 degree ambition and the net zero ambition. The climate chaos is the most urgent threat for society today. Climate action must help safeguard vulnerable groups and organisations. And organisations are encouraged to complement climate action goals with goals for the protection and restoration of natural systems for human prosperity and equality. By implementing 1.5% ambition and the net zero aligned strategies, charities will help support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're hoping for, and we thought we'd be able to announce today, but we haven't yet heard, we're hoping for government funding directed to this issue by Bradford Council to provide an assistance programme. So Bradford Community Energy, if successful, will be able to provide carbon audits to assess your community's own buildings and rank your sources of carbon emissions, identify solution options for you, and so you can prepare a business case for your communities, committees, and potential funders. If we are successful, on that funding. I'll be in the marketplace at the back if you want any further information on that and to sign up. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that profound change in behaviour and business models are possible. We've learnt that the way we move, live, eat and work can change, and that many activities can be moved online. Many of these changes open up long-term strategies that can reduce emissions. Costs of climate solutions continue to fall rapidly. The best option for the climate is often now cheaper than other alternatives, and markets for clean solutions are opening up and growing exponentially. Digital technologies enable light and resource-efficient business models to become highly competitive, and this brings opportunities for charities that shift towards the 1.5 degree aligned solutions and transform their operations early and so save operational costs. Customers and employees and governments are also stepping up requirements for organisations to show full transparency on emissions, targets and results, and to align with strategies and solutions with strong climate ambition. Climate action strengthens a brand, improves customer loyalty and boosts recruitment, on top of the other direct benefits of reducing your emissions. Should the funding we are seeking be received, Bradford Community Energy can assist your organisation in mapping its current emissions and identify your opportunities to reduce them. There are other support mechanisms out there through the Carbon Savings Trust and Carbon Trust and the Energy Savings Trust, and I urge you to look at their websites. Action begins by acknowledging the climate crisis, committing as an organisation to align with the 1.5 degree ambition and to assign your required resources. This requires climate leadership from the top management, but it is also about democratising climate work to ensure that all employees and beneficiaries can contribute and identify and empower potential climate leaders across your organisations. 10 years ago, a global goal to reach net zero emissions by 2050 seemed politically unlikely. Now, the latest science clearly shows this goal is necessary, achievable, and desirable. A 1.5 degrees centigrade planet will provide the greatest good for the most people. The countries are starting to adopt goals and legislation more closely aligned with this science, and halving emissions every decade using proven measures across society and the economy can deliver on this goal. Reaching the 2050 goal on net zero emissions globally will help ensure the continuation of the conditions that have allowed human civilization to flourish for over 10,000 years. This is every child's birthright. I urge you to register your interest and to develop your climate emission reduction plans today. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Kim's put me between you and your lunch. So a couple of things. Please do visit the marketplace. People have talked about their stalls that are there, and there are over 20 of them. Some people have already spoken for themselves, but there's also Citizen Koi, Made in Manningham, a few other people out there. For lunch, could we please sort of let all the really hungry people go first, and some of us just hang back and not have too much queuing? If that's right, there are two sides. They are identical. One more thing. At 1:30, we have some visitors from London, Bedford, who would like to talk to people about how they recruit diverse volunteers. Trying to sort this microphone out. So at 1:30, there will be a conversation in the tables at the back with the organisation called Shaping the Future. They've also got a stand outside. You're all very welcome to join that conversation.